21st August 2017. A day when a legitimate business fell prey to biased narratives and malicious propaganda. The Gupta family announced that it was selling off its interests in the media business, the group's 24/7 television news channel ANN7 and the New Age newspaper sold off to Mzwanele Manyi. Manyi-owned Lodidox bought ANN7 for 300 million rands and the New Age newspaper for 150 million rands. Barely a day later, the family announced it was pulling out from yet another business that it had acquired recently and turned around into a profitable one. The family reached an agreement to sell its Tegeta exploration and resources business, comprising Optimum, Goerfontein, and the Optimum Coal Terminal. Literally pushed to a corner due to rising media noise on the over-exaggerated and unproven state capture allegations, the Gupta brothers saw their exit from the business as perhaps the only option to stop these firms from falling apart. The thought behind both the Tegeta and the ANN7 and TNA transactions was one: to save jobs and provide certainty to over 7,500 employees of the group.
So this was an opportunity to make sure that these assets, they achieve their full potential. But importantly as well, as a person who is also a social activist, I was also concerned that with all that was happening, the staff in various places were in the business were anxious, were living on a day-to-day. So that was important even for me as a social activist to say, how do we make sure that we bring certainty to make sure that the staff continues to can plan? Because how do you buy a car if you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow? How do you buy a house and so on? So it was a very important thing, even at a social responsibility level. But importantly, this business has got a serious potential of growing, a serious potential of being a powerhouse, not only of the country, but of the continent.
If you look at the pressures that we've been facing, or our shareholders have been facing, and that pressure has come down to the company level, it's become increasingly difficult to operate. And I think it's a very sad day for us that our shareholders are or have decided to sell the shares. If we try and understand the business from the beginning, when we took over this business, it just come off the back of a 1.1 billion loss, and it was staring down the barrel of another 2.2 billion loss, which the previous owners had projected. And I think with our shareholders' vision, we've managed to turn the business around within 6 months, and we brought it out of business rescue, put it into profit. And I mean, the group, or the unit as itself, is a very profitable unit, and the growth that we've shown was immense. So I think there was a lot of resilience on their part to be able to withstand the pressure from the financial sectors and from all of the surrounding other elements that came into it, the litigation part, the media part, and all the negative connectivities surrounding the shareholders.
Here's a look at how the Gupta family-owned businesses were gradually choked by vested interests, threatening thousands of livelihoods. From December 2015 to April 2016, the 4 top private banks closed Gupta-related accounts almost simultaneously, making it difficult to pay salaries, vendors, and suppliers. In April 2016, auditors KPMG pulled out, citing pressure from above and association risk endangering the company's JSE listing. In the same month, JSE sponsors Sasfin pulled out, endangering Oakbay's JSE listing. In May 2016, LGESA Export Sales withdrew insurance cover from Sahara, followed by suppliers of mining machinery Barlow World Equipment terminating business with Shiva Uranium. 2 months later, Gregory School HBM Property and Energy SA via Reliant Insurance Brokers Pty Ltd, refused to offer support to Optimum. In September 2016, Western Digital stopped distribution of Sahara computers. The next month saw Reliant Insurance Brokers, Mutual and Federal Insurance Company, refuse to insure Optimum Colliery. In December, SanDisk terminated distribution and reselling agreement for CBC products. In June 2017, another JSE sponsor, River Group, pulled out, necessitating withdrawal from the JSE. Earlier this month, pay agent Terbium Financial Services also withdrew its services.
Here you have a company, a family that has started businesses from almost nothing in South Africa that brought into life this particular asset. We're sitting in a most amazing world-class studio with a world-class television facility and infrastructure and individuals who are predominantly black, the workers of TNA as well as the workers of ANN7, who are all predominantly black. And as a result, we are told that the Guptas are bad people, and yet look at the amount of value they've created in South Africa. Look at the amount of infrastructure they've invested and the direct money that has gone into this particular economy. So even if they had sold or retained ANN7 as well as the New Age newspaper, they will still be blamed. So indeed they are damned if they sell, indeed they are damned if they didn't sell.
But then, a few people in this country have been victimized by the vested interests as the Guptas have been. Barely hours after the sale announcements, the same political, business and media interests that had been gunning for the Guptas to quit the business started crying foul again. This time, questioning and nitpicking both the deals. The clamor to somehow declare perfectly legitimate deals as illegal begins.
It is their choice. When I have a business and I'm selling it, it's my choice. How will I sell it and to who? As long as it is within the legalities of the country. And I think they must be applauded for doing that. Instead of shutting down, picking up and taking their monies and leaving the country and leaving tens of thousands of people unemployed and frustrated. And that's what we are, a country that is crying about high rate of unemployment. And we cannot actually start criticizing an organization that is doing all it wants to do to can save jobs.
White media changes its story as it suits them. Because prior to this deal, the narrative has been that Guptas must be gotten rid of from this country as soon as it can happen. We've seen even political parties being mobilized into that campaign, even calling on marches, specifically targeting the Gupta family. When it suits them, the Guptas must go. Now that the Guptas are going, no, they're saying, no, we are running away. You must wait till we conduct this state capture report and see if you are guilty or not. It goes to show you that there is no presumption of innocence till guilt is proved, which is often the cornerstone of the criminal justice system of this country.
Take the ANN7 TNA sale to Manyi-owned Lodidox. The desperation evident in the fact that many are trying hard to portray Lodidox as a near front company, creating suspicions when none exist. Similarly, the issue around vendor financing, some articles trying to cook up a controversy out of thin air.
Vendor financing is an internationally recognized instrument of financing deals. In South Africa, even the Companies Act of 2008, I think around Section 44, it just makes it's a legal thing for current shareholders to be able to sell their shares and finance them as it were. So it's legal. And I think if it was illegal, for argument's sake, I think the DA would have been in court by now. They've got all the resources and so on. So indeed, I think all of this, and they know this, by the way, but they're trying whatever they can to discredit the deal, and they're not going to succeed. This deal is going to go through properly. Everything is going to happen because we're sticking to the rules. I mean, Ramaphosa himself is a beneficiary of this. many other people that are beneficiaries of vendor financing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And as I say, if there's anything wrong about it, the courts are open for business.
I think if you look in South Africa, it is not just the Jimmy Manye. Why should we make an issue about Jimmy Manye? All these people, BEE, most of them, today they have money, they are big business because they have been borrowed money by the owners. So I don't know why should we concentrate on Jimmy Manye. Actually, we should support Jimmy Manye. Because also the problem again is even black people, some of them, they are not happy because a black person is owning a media house.
But there's a lot of difference between a shelf company and a front. A shelf company is a perfectly legitimate tool and is pre-registered with the sole purpose of being sold to any person. A front, on the other hand, is a subsidiary or shell company of a larger company. A shelf company has no assets or liabilities and has never conducted business. A front, on the other hand, is an entity used to inhibit identification of an owner or member of another company.
A shell would be a company by name and so on, and without assets and not a view. But a shelf company is a brand new company. Indeed, it doesn't have liabilities. I think that's an important thing. A shelf company has got no liabilities. So when you contract with a shelf company, you really have no baggage. It's a nice, clean, zero position to deal with. Then you can easily assess the growth of the initiative based on the assets that are acquiring without contaminating with the baggage of the buyer, so to speak. So it's the cleanest way of doing business and it's legal.
Detractors also quick to pounce on vendor financing under which this deal has been done, once again crying wolf, creating the perception of wrongdoing where none exists, ignoring the reality that a lot of deals have been done under this format, both within South Africa and globally.
Vendor financing is one of the two very successful options of selling and buying of assets across the board. The last 23 years, most of BEE-based deals and transactions were all concluded on the basis of vendor finance. So it is nothing new. It is not something that has not been exercised previously.
As early as yesterday, we had Marion Roberts, the same company that was found guilty of corruption and colluding in the cement cartels during or towards the establishment of the 2010 soccer stadiums. The same company that has been found officially by a government entity like the Competition Commission. Yesterday went and bought a stake on Gautrain or the Mbombela Consortium. No, that's not making news.
According to Lodidoc's director Mzwane Lemanyi, the vendor financing agreement, in fact, stands testimony to the commitment of the former shareholders to radical economic transformation.
Black people in this country must know that the issue of ownership should be the name of the game. When this government talks about radical economic transformation, this is it. You can't do better than this. This deal has transformed the media ownership landscape overnight, just like this. That is radical.
The clamour for finding loopholes in the sale of Oakbay-owned media entities, making mainstream media almost desperate. The Times newspaper, in fact, now seeks access to the securities register of the Lodidocs Group.
They are hoping that in this share register that they are looking for, that they're going to see a Gupta there or something like that. That's what they're hoping for, because then they think that I've hidden shareholders in this thing and all that. They've asked for this information. They haven't even given the reasons for this information. So we'll see as to how. I'm still thinking about how I should respond with this thing, or whether I should indeed allow the whole process to go to court so that they can actually state their reasons. They haven't even stated their reasons. I mean, I'm a private company. I also have rights. I've got my privacy to look after. and all that. So as much as they have a right of access, I have also have got right to privacy. So maybe we must go and contest these things in court and see as to which right trumps the other, particularly because my organization is not a government organization. So what gives anybody a right to come and just check what's happening in my space? And they don't even give reasons. Why do I owe them anything?
The exhilaration over South Africa's first black African-owned media company drowned out by a malicious narrative.
Mzwane Lomani has just bought the asset. He has taken control of ANN7 and TNA Media. And with the progressive programs that he's going to be putting on board, with the content that is going to be generated, as well as the media and journalistic coverage and training of new people coming into board, that should be what should have been the litmus test, to see if he can pull it off and make a success out of the entity.
They are going to come out guns blazing. They are going to be vicious. They are going to be malicious. They are going to continue to demonize, to cast aspersions. That's what happens if you are a truly black institution that seeks to transform this economy, that seeks to advance, champion the interests of the African majority, the working class and the poor in particular. That's what happens. So you must be ready.
The Tegeta deal also similarly wrapped by vested interests in the cloak of alleged illegality. The rationale of job security for employees given by Oakbay for the sale to Swiss-based Charles King SA for 2.97 billion rands completely overlooked.
I think if you look at the pressures that we've been facing, or our shareholders have been facing, and that pressure has come down to the company level, it's become increasingly difficult to operate. And I think it's a very sad day for us that our shareholders are or have decided to sell the shares. I'm happy that and I can tell you now the shareholders are also very happy that they can now confidently, we hope, save the jobs and give the people job security.
The mainstream media narrative also completely ignoring the fact that the Guptas brought the ailing company from business rescue less than a year ago to set it on a profitable trajectory.
The fact that Tegeta became a very successful company by buying out a loss-making entity, which was actually an entity owned by Glencore, which was loss-making. They bought out that entity, which was sitting with a 2.1 billion penalty and major losses and actually offsetting of jobs at the time. And they were able to take this asset, put it together and make sure that they turn around the asset. And today they're selling it at a very substantial amount of money. And they are making a, not a huge profit in that sense, but recovering of all of the investment losses that they've entered into. So I don't think it's something that should really become such a really scary trajectory.
If we look at the mining, the optimal mining or the coal mine issue, again the Gupta family decides not to give that business to the white capital in South Africa. They have had business links with or connections with the person or the company that they have elected to sell the mine to. It is their choice.
Aspersions aplenty cast by media even on the Tegeta and Charles King SA deal. Some calling it a front, others questioning how a company that manufactures and distributes fashion apparels could run a South African mining operation, let alone finance it to the tune of 3 billion rands.
If you look at the current the buyer of the asset, it's an investment company. They want to invest into South Africa as such. They do commodity trading, and I think they want to broaden their portfolio. They don't have a footprint in South Africa as yet. So this is a first stance for them, and I don't think they come with a team, or there shouldn't be any problems in terms of the job losses. But what is very important for us is that when this company was taken over, they'd just come off 3,000 retrenchment from the previous owner. And since we have started, we have already engaged around about 2,000 to 2,500 employees, direct or indirect, that we've grown the company by. And our next phase of growth shows another 1,200 employees that we want to bring into the structure. However, that has been put on hold, since of this attack because of the uncertainty. And I think with a new shareholder coming in now, we will be able to go full force with that and, grow the mine to where we believe that it would be one of the biggest in South Africa.
Let's take a quick look at a profile of Tegeta's new owner, Amil Al-Zarouni. He's a leading businessman in the United Arab Emirates. Al-Zarouni is a highly respected and active participant in global private equity markets. He acquired Switzerland-based Charles King SA as a special purpose vehicle to facilitate investments. Al-Zarouni acquired Tegeta Optimum Coal, Optimum Terminal in Koornfontein Mine through Charles King SA. His businesses include joint ventures with French firms such as Arabville Abu Dhabi, Aegis Emirates Abu Dhabi, and Jimaix 17. But irrespective of facts, the propaganda continues. Former Finance Minister and known Gupta baiter Pravin Gordhan, in fact mooting a parliamentary probe into the sale of the Gupta assets, adding flame to the wrongdoing narrative. In his signature style, the axed minister quotes a random SMS to say that Tegeta's Swiss buyer has an interest in fashion to insinuate that something strange is going on. The question is whether Manyi or Al-Zarouni can get beyond the negative rhetoric.
The spiteful attack against the Gupta brothers and family was intended to make sure that they start sending a very clear message that we are going to target and take care of anyone who is going to challenge the current white monopoly hegemony model. So it is not new that they will be attacked. There will be yet another emerging black group or black individuals, and in this case they are starting with Umzwane Lemani, who is now being targeted as a head who they have to kill and actually obliterate as a competition.
You get a group of black guys who do not innovate, who do not create, who do not manufacture anything, who do not start up any black institution. Instead, they are given money to buy minority stakes. Now, that's not threatening white capital. That is not even building black capital. But when you leave that model and you now use the approach that says we are going to build black business, black institutions, fully black-owned, employing black people, managed, directed by black people, it becomes a serious threat to whites.
The new world is going to emerge. The new rules around the media space are going to emerge. And this is the resistance that they're trying to fight. So South African media landscape, as you know it, has just changed overnight. So all of these antiques that they're throwing, I don't think we should sympathize with them because what else can they do? Because the world as they know it has just changed.
The self-proclaimed independent media leading the anti-Gupta propaganda, adopting a tried and tested tactic which has now almost become a template. They create questions around Gupta-owned businesses, often relying on hearsay and unnamed sources. Facts that contradict their carefully constructed narrative of corruption around the family businesses are either ignored or distorted. They use the unsubstantiated reports written with a purpose to malign the business as proof of controversy and wrongdoing. The same articles are reproduced by multiple media houses to fuel a narrative. A bundle of these articles is then mailed to regulatory bodies or families' business partners to cause maximum damage. Question is whether this media is really as independent as they make themselves out to be.
If you champion the interests of black people, you are labeled by white media, white press, white TV channels, and white radio stations as someone who must be viewed with suspicion. And we get told that you are undermining Mandela's legacy.
I don't even really have any more deep respect for media analysts or journalists in today's situation, because they have now been used as actually hound dogs rather than journalists who investigate and find out the facts. The fact that you have now a horde of journalists running around causing more chaos and reporting non-factual stories and even fabricating stories in certain instances and coming up with fake news and giving us all this narrative as if it is really the core narrative and creating a junk content in South Africa. So I don't have respect for most of what they say.
Look carefully, and you may deduce that most of these so-called independent media houses merely echo one another, possibly talking the language of their monopoly capital masters, who are in direct business competition with the Gupta-owned companies.
Another element is these Guptas who have been choked and put under pressure because they were competing with the supposed to be masters of neo-colonialism. They decide, well, we are not being welcome in this country. You know, our bank accounts are being closed. We can't conduct business in a manner that we are supposed to. Therefore, we'll sell this business and dispose them. And what do? They sell these businesses not to this white monopoly capital that is dominating the South African market. They sell the media house to a black person in this country who is very well known, who is very well experienced in the media fraternity, and obviously it's wrong.
Worse, the narrative is only getting more vicious with each passing day. Some even insinuating and perhaps even edging on the big banks to shut the accounts of Mzwanele Manyi, a bid which would perhaps defeat the very purpose of the sale of these Gupta assets.
I understood banks to be rational institutions and so on. So I don't understand banks to be institutions that are full of vendetta and what have you. So there's no reason for that kind of irrational posture to be taken by banks.
There are still others who accuse Oakbay of using the possible job losses as a ruse to conveniently sell off their assets so the Guptas can flee South Africa ahead of the state capture investigations. What they forget is that neither of these deals will be done in a short space of time.
And here they have done a good job by making sure that they can push the Guptas to a corner and as a result destroy every brand integrity that the Gupta brothers had in terms of doing great business. They have succeeded with that, and as a result, the Guptas had no any other choice but to sell off their assets and actually dismantle that entire empire that they were building up, which is not even worth more than 10 billion in South African rand. So why would you destroy someone who is starting to build something so great that could have had so much of potential? And then as he sells off the assets, he sells it off to a black entity, a black group, and a black person, and then suddenly they have problems with the selling of that one.
Question is whether South Africa can look beyond the rhetoric being perpetuated by vested interests. Can it see how a legitimate business is falling prey to biased narratives? Is it willing to let the status quo remain unchallenged? The answers to those questions will ultimately decide the economic future of South Africa.